Welcome to Daily Debrief brought to you by People's Dispatch. I'm Pragya. Polls indicate the election in Israel will turn it further to the right. Will Netanyahu return as Prime Minister? And the provincial government of Ontario in Canada has proposed a law to bar strikes, and workers are not happy. These are stories in today's Daily Debrief. Israel's Likud party-led coalition has improved its performance in the fifth election since 2019 in the country. Polls indicate a new hardline government is set to take control of Israel. The party of former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who faces corruption charges, looks poised to get a majority in the 120-seat Israeli parliament thanks to its hard-right allies. Abdul from People's Dispatch has been tracking the election and he's here with us in the studio. Abdul, what do we know about this election result so far?
As per the reports, latest trend is almost 97% votes have been counted, and the postal ballots are still to be counted. But out of these 97% votes counted, Likud-led alliance, Netanyahu's alliance, is gaining around 65 seats as per the trends. It means for the first time since 2019, there will be a government with full majority. In this, if we break it up, the Likud coalition, Likud itself has not performed great. It has just improved one seat in its tally. Last time it had 30, this time it has 31. But one of its major allies, the ultra right-wing party, nationalist list, has basically improved, is doubled its seat. Last time it has 6, it is more than double, now 14 or 15 seats it is expected to get. Apart from that, Shah's, another traditional ally of Likud, has improved its tally and is expected to get around 12 seats. And United Torah Judaism is expected to get 8. If you see, all the members of the Likud-led alliance have improved their tally, but the Itamar Ben-Gvir led party is the largest gain. He has the largest gain. Yair Lapid-led coalition, the current Prime Minister, his coalition, of course, has when it comes to his individual party, Yesh Atid, it has improved its tally from 17 to 24. But the rest of the coalition members, particularly the left coalition, Labour, Meretz, has suffered a big loss. Labour has lost more than 3 seats, and it is now expected to get 4 only. And Meretz is not even is able to cross the 3.25%, the minimum threshold to get any seat in the parliament. So it will not have any representative in the upcoming parliament. The Arab list, there are 3 parties, of course. Right. Out of these 3, 2 of them, of course, are making into the parliament with 4 seats and 5 seats. RAM, which had last time supported the Yair Lapid government, is getting 5 seats this time as well. But the other parties are not getting much seat. In fact, Balad is not going to make it as per the latest trends. It may change, but it's very unlikely. And the Hassad Tal joint list will get around 4 seats. So this is the overall situation in the elections which were held yesterday. This election, in one way, was different from the last 4 elections. This was the 5th since 2019. This time there was popular participation increased to 71%. More than 71% electorate exercised their votes, and it is reported that the voting among the Palestinian minorities has reduced.
Okay. Abdul, now the thing is that Netanyahu, it is his hard-right allies who seem to have done very well, and particularly the name of Ben-Gvir has started popping up again. So can you tell us about this particular person, what his politics is about, and the significance of his party doing well?
Well, Ben-Gvir is a politician who can be, if you imagine an openly racist leader and party, he represents that. He openly talks about segregation between the Arabs and the Israelis. He talks about loyalty test for all those people who are not basically adhering to the Zionist ideas of a Jewish state. He talks about openly talks about violence against all those people who are opposed to Zionist ideas of Israel, and therefore he is as right-wing as you can get. So Israeli politics is overall, there is a right-wing shift for last decade and so, but Ben-Gvir represents the extreme right-wing politics can shift to. He is considered to be a Kahanist, means he's a follower of Mir Kahan, who was basically, who talked about ethnic cleansing, openly talked about ethnic cleansing, and so on and so forth. His victory, his popularity and his victory, which basically will save the Likud-led coalition and may bring stability in Israel for next 5 years at least, is basically, and particularly he's very popular. If you see, if you read the local media, he is very popular among the young in Israel. It means that the youth and a large section of Israelis have turned towards a politics of hatred, particularly against the Palestinians, their own Palestinian citizens, and against the Palestinians in general. And they openly talk about extremist ideas, which were for few years before. Even Netanyahu used to say that in no future coalition, Ben-Gvir will be part of the Israeli government. His ideas were that anathema to the ruling coalition, which is itself is a right-wing coalition. So you can understand how the shift has happened, which has legitimized openly racist and apartheid ideas in Israel.
Okay, so a continuous shift towards the right. Now, what would this kind of an election outcome mean to Palestinians, mean to the Palestinian cause?
When we talk about the impact of the election results on Palestinians, of course, the Palestinians in the occupied territories are always on the receiving end. The change in the government in Israel, at least in last few decades, has not had any good impact on Palestinians. It has always gone bad to worse. So, for example, Netanyahu was considered to be the worst prime minister when it comes to the Palestinians in occupied territories. But Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, the coalition, when it came to power, it pursued policies which were worse than Netanyahu. In rest of the issues, they continued with the Netanyahu's policies, like settlement, like displacement, and so on and so forth. And when it comes to Gaza, blockade, attacks on Gaza, that continued. But when it comes to violence, in fact, the violence has gone up during Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid's regime. According to UN, 2022 is the worst year when it comes to the number of Palestinians killed since 2005. So, if you compare Netanyahu's regime and Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid's regime, there is hardly any difference. In fact, it is worse than Benjamin Netanyahu in many ways. So, the coming of Ben-Gvir to power under Netanyahu's coalition, of course, it means that the worsening of the condition. It does not mean any improvement in it, of course. That is quite obvious. But when we talk about the Palestinians inside 1948 Israel, the citizens who can vote, their condition is going to be badly affected, primarily because the Ben-Gvirs represent, as we said before, talked before, Ben-Gvir represents the extremist ideas, and he openly, as we said before, openly talks about apartheid system. It means segregation, violence against the Palestinians, citizens of Israel, is likely to increase further.
All right, Abdul, thanks very much for joining us with that update. The future is uncertain for education workers in Ontario, Canada. They want contracts that offer better pay and benefits, but the government responded to their notice of intent to strike with a rarely used constitutional provision. It wants to force education workers into what unions consider unfair contracts and end further bargaining. There will be hefty fines on striking workers. What happens next also depends on how other workers and unions respond to this law. We spoke to Anish from People's Dispatch, who has all the details of this. Anish, thanks for joining us. Anish, what is the new law that Canada is planning to pass, and what are the workers' demands? How does the new law affect what the workers want?
Well, let's begin with the demands here. Workers are asking for 11.7% raise in their wages. And apart from that, they're also calling for a couple of other major, very crucial demands, which includes 30-minute prep time for assistant educators. There are increased benefits and even twice or doubling the pay rate that they have for overtime. And so these are, while they seem quite significant for an annual rate hike, the problem is that workers have been, education workers especially, have been facing stagnated wages for nearly a decade now. There has been almost no real-time wage hike that they've seen since 2012. These set of demands, in fact, are trying to correct the problems that have existed, especially at a time when Canada, like other parts of the world, is facing a cost of living crisis and spiraling inflation. With the 7% inflation rate, 11.7% rate, wage hike is still reasonable. And also considering the fact that on an average, educators do get paid less than a whole host of other similar, qualified jobs across Ontario. Now, the law that they're trying to pass is basically what they're calling is Keep the Students in School law, is with an idea to basically end any bargaining unilaterally and impose a contract on workers that the government has planned. Now, the government earlier gave a 2% rate hike, and they are now hiking that 2.5%, far lower than what the workers are calling for right now. None of the other demands are in the contract that they're trying to secure. And this actually has irked workers because it is going to obviously basically outlaw their right to collective bargain for the next few years, but also it is going to effectively prevent them from striking, which is something which is sort of a constitutional right, which the government is trying to override with a very special constitutional provision that allows for states to opt out of certain rights for a period of 5 years. So it is going to effectively ban them from striking for the next 5 years, which is also the contract period, which makes it even more impossible for any kind of labor mobilization, especially at a time when worker mobilization is essential if you want to deal with a conservative government that is going for rate hikes and wage cuts, definitely.
Right, Anish. So now keeping students in school, why is the government positioning its law and everything else it is doing in those terms? And also, how are the unions and the workers responding to this?
Well, the whole title is essentially trying to pit parents against teachers. Now, one of the things that the government and the pro-conservative advocates across Ontario have done is to highlight this 11.7% rate hike. Now, the thing is, we need to remember in the nearly last 10 years, the wage hike, the wage increase that educators have witnessed is around is around 8.5%. Even though the actual inflation in that meantime had gone to nearly 18%. So we are talking about actual decline in real wages for educators.
Right.
So the real bigger picture is being masked by repeatedly talking about this 11.7%, 11.7%, because a whole host of other sectors are either going to not receive any wage hike, or they are going to, in fact, see downsizing and layoffs, and even job losses, massive job losses in the coming months. So definitely, this is trying to pit teachers against educators, not just teachers, but educators in general against the general public, especially parents. They're trying to make it seem as if if teachers strike, then students will not be attending their classes, which will put them behind, trying to
Okay.
create a sort of discord and even prevent any kind of support that can actually come their way. Now, the way that the unions are trying to do is nevertheless going ahead with the strike, even though it can be outlawed in the by next week. Now, there will be a strike on Friday, which is ahead of what they had already planned in in an earlier strike vote, when the whole collective bargaining just broke down with the government. And this is definitely going to affect schools across Ontario, which is the largest uh, province in terms of population. So definitely this is going to affect the education sector. But here the problem is not because workers are striking, but the fact that after months, almost a year of negotiations, there has been little progress and there has been little concessions being made on the part of the government. In fact, we have to remember that this is also not the first time that the government will be using the notwithstanding clause of the Charter of Rights. They already used that earlier this year in June to prevent any kind of anti-government banners that could affect elections, which is
Right.
upcoming in the next year. So this is definitely going to this definitely shows that the government is trying to strike down on unions in general, because it's not just educators we're talking about. There are already nurses who are planning to strike. There are other whole host of public workers that are negotiating contracts where the government is not responding favorably, or even in any good faith, let alone be favorable. So in this scenario, definitely the workers have the task set for them, because obviously their means of propaganda, their means of getting the information out and fighting disinformation is limited. But definitely industrial action is their way to move forward.
Right, Anish. Thanks for joining us with that update. And that's all we have for you today. Thank you for watching Daily Debrief. Do come back to us tomorrow. You can find more such stories on our website, peoplesdispatch.org, and look out for our regular updates on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.